All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Robert Greene Book Club, and today we're going to continue with the chapter about understanding your irrationality. This chapter in the Laws of Human Nature is all about understanding why you are irrational and what you can do to bring out your rational self. And this part of the chapter is about becoming aware of inflaming factors. What are the things that causes you to lose control? What are the things that causes you to become biased? And how can you identify it? So we've already made 2 videos about this, so you could go back and watch the beginning. But now we're going to continue with this, and yeah, let me know. And by the way, as you guys can see, this is the long video. I usually post only like 10 minutes of the full Robert Greene Book Club videos. But today, because I'm feeling happy, I'm going to give you guys the full video so that all of my YouTubers can watch it. And as you guys can see, by becoming a member, you guys can get access to all of the Robert Greene Book Club things. For example, you guys can see right here, this was the last one that I posted. There's just a bunch of content that I don't post, that I post here. And all of these questions that I'm answering are from questions that people ask and I answer in the form of a video. So that means by becoming a Patreon member, you get a lot of benefits. You guys can watch all the Robert Greene Book Club's videos, but also you guys can ask me questions depending on the tier, and I'll make videos about it. So click on the description down below where it says join the Robert Greene Book Club. Go look at the benefits, and also we also post the audio version of the book club videos so that you guys can listen to it at home. So you guys get the whole shebang bang, people. All right, so go get that, or else I'm closing the channel. Let's continue.
He feels a powerful rush of emotion, a sense of imminent betrayal. He does not see the source of this. It is beyond his control. He overreacts, accuses, withdraws, all of which leads to the very thing he feared.
This is talking about a man who is afraid of being abandoned, and because of his fear, he'll begin to see things that are not there. And even though the woman might love him, her withdrawing because of some reason that has nothing to do with him will cause him to see that maybe she's withdrawn because she doesn't love him. And because of that, what he'll do is, rather than get rejected, he'll reject her. And it actually causes the same event that he was trying to prevent, which is abandonment. So the trigger point was her pulling away, and it caused them to start projecting his fear of abandonment as a child, right? So that's an example of things of an inflaming factor.
Abandonment. His reaction was to some reflection in his mind, not to the reality. This is the height of irrationality. The way to recognize this in yourself and in others is by noticing behavior that is suddenly childish in its intensity.
Perfect example of people acting childish is when they get dumped or played. That's when they all of a sudden start being petty. They start calling me and hitting me up. How do I get revenge on my boyfriend and stuff? And but things that get you, like, we know when people get petty, those people who are petty wops, people who are vindictive, usually they just have a lot of triggers.
And seemingly out of character. This could center on any key emotion. It could be fear of losing control, of failure. In this case, we react by withdrawing from the situation and the presence of others, like a child curling up into a ball.
That's pretty much projection. For example, if you meet someone and they remind you of a parent who never gave you the love you felt like you deserved, then you're going to act with that person and feel the same emotions you felt with your parents, right? That's pretty much projection. An unresolved problem from the past manifesting itself in real life, and you trying to recreate it in order to overcome it. It's like when a dog dies and you pretty much buy a dog that looks similar to the dog that died, so that you can project the love that you have for your other dog for your new dog. And that's a way that a lot of people deal with emotions, through projection. It's a good way to release pent up energy.
It could be love, desperately searching to recreate a close parental or sibling relationship in the present, triggered by someone who vaguely reminds us of the lost paradise.
Or even that's why people have types, right? Don't you notice why people keep dating a similar looking person? It's because most likely maybe that person reminds them of a father figure or a mother figure. Or maybe they remind them of an ex who broke their heart. And so they date people who look similar to their ex as a way to redeem themselves. Almost like, like it's almost like when people's dog die, they buy the same looking dog, like, so even though doggy Bob the dog died, you'll get Tyrone the dog that looks similar to Bob the dog, and you might even call him Bob the dog, and you can almost psych yourself out. It's similar to that. That's what projections do. That's why people develop their types, and that's why some people are attracted to toxic types, because they wanna almost like they wanna start all over the game, like you're playing a video game and you lose, so you restart until you win. That's what people do with partners. Rather than just let go of the game and pick a new one that's better for you, they're hard headed, and they bury their heads deeper and deeper every time they fail.
It could be extreme mistrust originating from an authority figure in early childhood who disappointed or betrayed us, generally the father.
Mm-hmm.
This often triggers a sudden rebellious attitude. The great danger here is that in misreading the present and reacting to something in the past, we create conflict.
And honestly, this is why so many people have so many bad relationships, because then they never really interact with the people. They're usually interacting with the phantom, their insecurities, their
disappointments and mistrust that only strengthen the wound. In some ways, we are programmed to repeat the early experience in the present.
Mm-hmm.
Our only defense is awareness as it is happening.
That's why self-awareness is an end in and of itself. Whereby you just knowing yourself, that's literally an end. Like, you literally help yourself by just...
We can recognize a trigger point by the experience of emotions that are unusually primal, more uncontrollable than normal.
Usually is rejection, or a lot of people don't like being played, so they feel the need for revenge. A lot of those moments of vengeance are just...
They trigger tears, deep depression, or excessive hope. People under the spell of these emotions will often have a very different tone of voice and body language, as if they were physically reliving a moment from early life.
And what people don't understand is that being in that state of mind is actually really pleasurable.
In the midst of such an attack, we must struggle to detach ourselves and contemplate the possible source, the wound in early childhood, and the patterns it has locked us into. This deep understanding of ourselves and our vulnerabilities is a key step toward becoming rational.
Like, a key to do this is to ask yourself, where does this originate from? Assume that every intense emotion you experience in life, like the feeling of rejection, assume that everything comes from childhood, and assume that there is a first time you felt this, and try to trace it back. Don't just assume it just popped out of nowhere. Find the source. Just ask yourself, when was the first time that I felt this? And whatever memory comes to you, most likely it might be true. Like, I don't know the science behind that type of memory retrieval, right? Because, for example, when I remember the feeling of abandonment that I had when I was a kid was when my mom left to New York City. I was 7 years old, and that was one of the first times that my mom left. And I remember that she was running. I remember I gave her like a little flower, like a white flower. I think I took it, to be honest with you. And she left, and I ran after the car crying. And then I ran back to my room and went into my closet. And I remember crying for a long time, right? And that moment was the first time I remember feeling alone, feeling abandoned, not feeling comforted, And you could easily see that as a moment in time, that if I remember that moment, it means that it was a very intense experience, Or another moment was when I was a kid, and my mom left me with a babysitter, and I remember crying that she left, right? And then I remember looking at some paintings, and she left me. It was in Dominican Republic, and she left me with neighbors who lived in front of us. And I remember just crying and looking at some paintings. It was like a red wall, just crying, and it had a very similar effect, right? And so you could easily say that I have because of those memories, when people leave me, I have a tough time saying goodbye to people. And that's actually a real true thing, right? That's why I don't like traveling. Like in staying in hostels and meeting people, knowing that I'm gonna say goodbye to them because I don't like saying bye. I don't like people leaving me. When I like people, I like them, right? So I may have that neediness, and it originates from those types of moments. And something that you could do to help you alleviate that is imagine that you're back in that time when you were crying, and give yourself in your mind the comfort that you wanted. Imagine that self of yours, and imagine who you are today, and give it a hug, and give it what it needs, or even do meditation and wish that little annoying little boy, wish it. I wish you well. May you be loved, and may you be at peace. And say it with as much love and compassion, and look at that self, and imagine that self is getting happier. Imagine that self relaxing, and what you're doing is that you're healing yourself. You're healing your future self through
Sudden gains or losses. Sudden success or winnings can be very dangerous. Neurologically, chemicals are released in the brain that give a powerful jolt of arousal and energy.
You can easily see this happening when you meet people initially, where the connection that you feel tends to completely blind you, and it causes you to not see red flags. So like that's also a sudden gain, and also a sudden loss when you get broken up. That also causes you to see reality with more of a squinted gaze,
leading to the desire to repeat this experience. It can be the start of any kind of addiction and manic behavior. Also, when gains come quickly, we tend to lose sight of the basic wisdom that true success, to really last, must come through hard work.
and this is why people who are given things without actually working for it, especially when it happens throughout their whole life, become entitled and delusional, and that sometimes leads them to use a lot of drugs to increase that, or even to, because when you're in a state of delusion consistently, it could drive you mad. It might even produce some anxiety over the long term, because it just takes up so much of your brain to distort reality that it might have a negative.
We do not take into account the role that luck plays in such sudden gains. We try again and again to recapture that high from winning so much money or attention. We acquire feelings of grandiosity. We become
Well, that's what happens, right? Like what addiction is, right? Like the pleasure, the intense pleasure and intense pain causes irrationality. You know, that even happens when we are in love, or when we lose someone. Our thoughts don't our thoughts begin to not make sense, and especially people who are gamblers, right? They think they win big, and so they expect to win big again, and they end up losing everything because of that. They overestimate how much luck had to do with it. And this is why, look, this is true in life, man. Whenever you think that your success came because of your wit, that your success came because of how smart you are, and you don't and you don't add to the fact of how much luck had to do with it, then your success is only going to be temporary. For example, look at my YouTube channel, right? There was a certain level element of luck in finding the right topic for me, right? But at the same time, if I don't turn that luck into skills, then my luck is gonna run out. In other words, like everyone's not gonna watch my videos forever. I have to expand and move into new fields, right? And that's the part that if you just got lucky, eventually the light that you're shining with because of you're the new YouTuber, eventually people are gonna get bored of you, and luck is not gonna help you recreate what you created. And so a lot of them will lose their channels. Their channels will die, and because they had a sense of superiority, because they thought that their luck was really them, how good they were, they end up getting depressed and they get frustrated because they can't recreate what they created. You know.
especially resistant to anyone who tries to warn us. They don't understand, we tell ourselves. Because this cannot be sustained, we experience an inevitable fall, which is all the more painful, leading to the depression part of the cycle. Although gamblers are the most prone to this, it equally applies to business people during bubbles and to people who gain sudden attention from the public.
A perfect example of that is Bitcoin, right? Or even CryptoZoo. But generally, or even NFTs, all of those things are pretty much promoted by our virality, and never promoted because it's some rational thing. In fact, most people get into it and they don't even know what it is. And the reason why they're into it is because other people who they trust are into it.
Unexpected losses or a string of losses equally create irrational reactions. We imagine we are cursed with bad luck and that this will go on indefinitely.
This happens with my YouTube channel, right? Sometimes when I don't get enough views, I'm like, oh fuck, my channel's dying, right? Or even in failure with relationships, this tends to happen a lot.
We become fearful and hesitant, which will often lead to more mistakes or failures. In sports, this can induce what is known as choking, as previous losses and misses weigh on the mind.
That's because if you have one negative experience, that's pretty much what trauma is, right? Where your brain has a good memory for the bad things that happen and for the good things that happen. And the reason why that is because if something hurts, if something produces any type of pain, your brain is going to remember it to avoid it. So before you encounter that thing which causes pain, your body's going to react with adrenaline, with a flight response, right? And so that causes people to get jittery. All of the natural neural connections that you have are going to be completely distorted, all geared towards getting the hell out of here. And it's a mechanism that actually helps, but it doesn't help when it comes.
And tighten it up. The solution here is simple. Whenever you experience unusual gains or losses, that is precisely the time to step back and counterbalance them with some necessary pessimism or optimism.
So what he's saying is, at any time you feel you have extreme success, be skeptical and expect your success to not last long, and almost like work with that reality. In other words, if you're hyper successful now, work as though you're about to lose it all tomorrow. If you're failing continuously, learn from your mistakes, but also go in the opposite direction and imagine that this is just the good part of the story. Like, I remember when I was younger and I was failing, I always saw my failures as, man, this is going to be a good chapter in my book. That's what I saw it as. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good chapter. Or I would read the biography of people who failed a lot when they were young and succeeded. That's why I relate with Robert Greene so much, because he became successful, quote unquote, in his late 30s, right? So that's one thing that you could do, is just read the biographies of people who are in a similar situation to you who succeeded and see what they did differently so that you could counterbalance it.
Be extra wary of sudden success and attention. They are not built on anything that lasts, and they have an addictive pull.
Hey man, I'll say this with my channel. My channel may not grow exponentially like a lot of channels do, but my channel, especially here, has been growing consistently. Not as fast as I want it, but one, is growing. Two, it's helped people. People who watch my channel, it's very, like, I like to think that if you watch my videos and you actually do what they say, something in you will change. And I'm proud of that, you know? And it sucks it's not as fast as I wanted to, but look at the bright side. You have people who consistently watch you, and it actually helps. And yes, the problem with helping people too well is that they don't need you. That's the issue. You know, if I do my job really well, you guys are not going to need me. But eventually, I'm hoping that will yield some results, maybe karma, you know? Because one of the laws of power is keep people dependent on you. And clearly I don't do that. Because I understand that by me making you guys depend on me, I'm stripping you of your powers, but giving you the illusion that I'm helping you at the same time. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't like I might seem from the way my videos are, I might seem like a crazy immoral person, but the truth is I have standards. And my standards is to not cheat you guys of content, not lie to you guys, not scam you guys, and if I am and if and above all, value giving you actual results over entertainment. And that's something that a lot of people just don't value. And I understand why. There's no money in it. But for me, the reward is seeing people change, is walking down the street and seeing a follower and them tell me how much my videos changed their lives. That to me is the most pleasurable thing ever, to be honest with you. I look at them and just look at them with love and say like, wow, I cannot believe you trusted me enough to help to for me to be a change in your life. That's a privilege, That's a privilege that I will never ever take for granted.
And the fall is always painful. Rising pressure. The people around you generally appear sane and in control of their lives. But put any of them in stressful circumstances with the pressure rising, and you will see a different reality.
Like LeBron James on the free throw line, or any athlete who is in clutch situations, the better ones usually crumble, and people would judge them based on how they performed when there was pressure situation.
The cool mask of self-control comes off. They suddenly lash out in anger, reveal a paranoid streak, and become hypersensitive and often petty. Under stress or any threat, the most primitive parts of the brain are aroused and engaged, overwhelming people's reasoning powers. They call that when the brain does that, it's like the reptilian brain hijacking your prefrontal cortex. Like when something fearful happens, you tend to stop thinking, but now you focus on the situation. But you stop thinking because your reptilian brain is taking over your thinking brain. So you stop thinking, but you become more focused, and that's. In fact, stress or tension can reveal flaws in people that they have carefully concealed from view. It is often wise to observe people in such moments precisely as a way to judge their true character. Never let a crisis go to. Whenever you notice rising pressure. That is so true. Like in sports, you can see what a player is made of when there's pressure. You can see what a person is made of when they're behind the ball, when they're attacked, when they feel on the defensive, when everyone is against them and trying to force them to change their opinion. When things are due, do they recoil or do they fight back, right? And even with yourself, notice what happens when there's pressure. Look, I'll be honest with you. I've crumbled under pressure. People, there's no shame with crumbling under pressure. It takes you a while to actually not crumble under the same pressure consistently. It does take you a while. For example, notice, I remember when I was first started doing meditation and I would miss my flight. My God, people, I would just get angry. Now, when I miss my flight, I just sit down and just breathe, and I'm upset, but you can't see it. Like I'm calm enough to not show how upset I was. Where before you could easily see it in my face, right? That to me, anytime something negative happens, the pleasure that I gain from negative things is observing how I react. And when I react with calmness in the face of negative events, I actually feel very proud of myself. It's actually one of my favorite things is to see how I react under stress. Pressure and stress levels in your life. You must watch yourself carefully. Monitor any signs of unusual brittleness or sensitivity, sudden suspicions, fears disproportionate to the circumstances. Observe with as much detachment as possible, finding time and space to be alone. For me, it's, for example, when I go to school, I sometimes feel insecure that my classmates don't like me back. That's just me, right? And so when I feel depressed, I notice that my thoughts of people don't like me become more intense. So clearly, when I feel like the world is against me, there's an insecurity in me about being liked by people. And so I then look around in my other parts of my life and notice how does this pattern manifest itself in different ways.
And that's how you get to know yourself. You get to know yourself not by looking at your thoughts, but by observing your reactions and seeing where does this reaction come from, and where do you see that same reaction in other scenarios, but disguising itself because it's another scenario. Like anger. If you're angry, then you might show that same anger when you're watching sports. You might also show that same anger when the TV doesn't work. And so you try to see, where does this emotion keep coming from? Where does it show? Where does it manifest itself? And also, where doesn't it manifest itself? Who does it? Who provokes it? And who else doesn't? And when was the first time that I felt this? People, there is a power, there is an end in just knowing this. When you just have an awareness of this, there also comes an ability to actually control it. It's kind of creepy, not creepy, but it's one of the only things in life where just knowing it is a benefit. You know.
You need perspective. Never imagine that you are someone who can withstand rising stress without emotional leakage. It is not possible.
So what the brain does is that it makes you think it's possible, so that then you don't inquire. When you think you're rational, you don't inquire. And the key to overcoming the irrationality is to inquire whether or not you are rational. But if the brain makes you think that you are completely right and that your ideas don't come from an emotional place, then you're never really going to see the problem.
But through self-awareness and reflection, you can prevent yourself from making decisions you will come to regret. Inflaming individuals.
Oh, this is big.
There are people in the world who, by their nature, tend to trigger powerful emotions in almost everyone they encounter. These emotions range among the extremes of love, hatred, confidence, and mistrust.
These people, a lot of times, end up being the celebrities of our time. These people tend to become famous, and that's why a lot of the most famous people are pretty toxic, because, well, I'm not famous, so thank God, because they tend.
Some examples in history would include King David in the Bible, Alcibiades in ancient Athens, Julius Caesar in ancient Rome, Georges Danton during the French Revolution, and Bill Clinton. These types have a degree of charisma.
That's why there are two types of charisma. Charisma that makes people love you, and charisma that makes people hate you. And unfortunately, the most powerful types of charisma is usually the type of charisma that creates hate. Because people who are able to make people hate them with intensity will get more people to follow them who love them, as opposed to people who know how to create followers and love them. But if that person doesn't know how to make people hate them, they won't gain as many followers.
They have the ability to express eloquently emotions they are feeling, which inevitably stirs parallel emotions in others. But some of them can also be quite narcissistic. They project their internal drama and troubles outward, catching other people up in the turmoil they create. This leads to profound feelings of attraction in some and repulsion in others.
I think I was somebody who made people either like you a lot or dislike you. When I was younger, I just made more people dislike me more, to be honest with you. I was just too different. But also, I was annoying. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be liked so badly that I couldn't tell when you didn't like me back. That was honestly the cause of a lot of my pain when I was a younger guy.
It is best to recognize these inflamers by how they affect others, not just yourself. No one can remain indifferent to them. People find themselves incapable of reasoning or maintaining any distance in their presence.
Another perfect example of an inflamer is Donald Trump, right? People either really love him or really hate him.
They make you think of them continually when not in their presence. They have an obsessive quality, and they can lead you to extreme actions as a devoted follower or as an inveterate enemy. On either end of the spectrum,
That's why Rasputin is a perfect example. A lot of people during Rasputin's time hated him. That's why they killed him. And a lot of people loved him. That's why he was fucking everyone. I mean, he was fucking everyone's wife. And the people who killed him most likely were the husbands of the women he was fucking, right? Crazy. I would have killed that nigga too. Fuck that. I'm like, where's Rasputin, man? The fuck? Find him. Jesus Christ, I got mad.
attraction or repulsion, you will tend to be irrational, and you will desperately need to distance yourself. A good strategy to utilize is to see through the front they project. They inevitably try to cast a larger-than-life image, a mythic, intimidating quality. But in fact, they are all too human.
And that's the goal of a lot of celebrities. A lot of celebrities, a lot of their branding is to mythologize themselves, to make you think that they're not humans, to make you think that they are made out of a different cloth. And because of that, you'll then worship them and follow them. But if you realize their humanity, a lot of the respect you tend to feel goes away, because a lot of the respect you feel is really just a mythologized version of them, which is pretty irrational.
Full of the same insecurities and weaknesses we all possess. Try to recognize these very human traits and demythologize them. The group effect. This is the height.
That's what Stalin did. When no, that's what the guy from Italy. You know, the dictator from Mussolini. When you would piss off Mussolini, sometimes Mussolini would like this, would roll his eyes up, like that, would roll his eyes up to intimidate the people who he was in front of, and that intimidation caused people to see him as more than just a man, right? And that's what a lot of dictators do, where they raise up their image to look like a god, to create the image of a god, because it doesn't just inflate their ego, but it also brings them power through the act of intimidation, because you're in the face of something greater than just anyone, greater than just humans. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you got to remind yourself they're also humans as well. They also take a shit. They also cry. They also feel pain. But they don't want you to see that. That's why meditating on your common mortality, imagining how people will die, seeing that one day everyone will die, is actually the most powerful tool to demythologize them, if that makes any sense.
A grade variety of the group bias. When we are in a group of a large enough size, we become different. Notice yourself and others at a sporting event, a concert, a religious or political gathering.
This is why I recommend you guys go to meditation meetups, or even anytime you do something, do it with a group, because you actually become a more efficient version of yourself. The group doesn't have just a negative effect on you. It also has a positive effect on you if you know how to use it.
It is impossible to not feel yourself caught up in the collective emotions. Your heart beats faster, tears of joy or sadness come more readily.
There's a chapter in this book called The Laws of Human Nature. It's called chapter 17, about avoiding group think. I would highly recommend you read that chapter. It literally talks about how the group changes the way you think, how the group changes your value, and how the group changes the way you behave. That's why you have a lot of mobs where people in the group setting will commit atrocities, and they can only commit those atrocities when they're in a group.
Being in a group does not stimulate independent reasoning, but rather the intense desire to belong. This can happen equally in a work environment, particularly if the leader plays on people's emotions to spur competitive, aggressive desires or creates an us versus them dynamic.
That's why you shouldn't be involved in just one group, and have like multiple groups that you sort of interact with, because when you're just part of one group, you tend to develop that mind hive.
The group effect does not necessarily require the presence of others. It can occur virally, as some opinion spreads over social media and infects us with the desire to share the opinion.
And you saw this a lot during COVID, where people were the most politically biased that you could possibly think of, to be honest with you, especially because of social media.
Generally of a strong variety, such as outrage.
Well, look at what's going on today. The world is so black and white now. You're either with us or not. There's no space. And if you engage in those types of conversations, you're going to lose yourself in it. There's a lot of wars going on. And with these wars come an extreme sense of bias. More than I've ever seen in my life. And 2020 was bad, but this is even worse. This This is like legit. Like crazy. I never seen so much bias in my life, and because of that, I choose not to engage in it. Because by me trying to tamper down the bias and trying to say, hey, people, both you guys are, all 3 or 4 or 5 of you guys are thinking crazy. They're gonna pull me in. So sometimes it's best to not even engage. But nowadays, you might think, oh, wow, humans have transcended. We're so great. We're so amazing. But look how animalistic, how tribal we are. You know, our transcendence from primal apes will not be complete. Like technology is not a sign of how much how we're transcending. It's our ability to think rationally, to help other people, to not hurt people at the cost of your benefit. That's a sign that we are truly transcending out of our animal nature, not intellect.
There is an exhilarating, positive aspect to the stimulation of group emotions. It is how we can be rallied to do something for the collective good.
And also, that's how people get dragged into doing atrocities, where the nicest person that you might know might be willing to do completely atrocious things, all in a group setting. And everyone is susceptible to that. Me, Gandhi, doesn't matter. When you're in a group, you are highly suggestible. So that's why you got to be careful the types of groups that.
But if you notice the appeal is to more diabolical emotions, such as hatred of the other, rabid patriotism, aggression, or sweeping worldviews, you need to inoculate yourself.
And for me, one of the ways I inoculate myself is just to not watch the news. I don't watch the news unless I hear it in real life. And I don't pick a political side. I'm pretty much neutral. I have never voted for one party all of my life. Right? And that's why people who just, like I said, people who vote for one party, I'm like, bro, you're not thinking straight. How the hell does this party is always right? How is that possible? Anyways.
And see through the powerful pull as it works on you.
That's why I avoid it.
It is often best to avoid the group setting if possible in order to maintain your reasoning powers.
Yes. So that means don't go to protests, right? Don't go to rallies. Seriously. Like, if you're going to be going around one rally, go to both. But the point is that what he is trying to say is not to pick a side. It's to not let both sides make you commit to one side and completely forget about looking at the evidence that supports the other side. Because what people want, what the demagogues want, is for you to not think straight. That's the point. They don't want you to think straight. And what he is saying is that, unfortunately, if you really want to think straight, you can't be fully on one side. There has to be an element of you understanding the other side to such a degree that even people in your side might dislike you for it. Yeah, I fucking hate groupthink, honestly. I hate that. Hate it. Oh,
or to enter.
See, that's right there. That's my bias right there. What does that say? The reason why I might hate the groupthink is because some of the groupthink goes against my own beliefs. So that's really just because it hurts my ego. Because groupthink could be so close-minded that I can't convince you. See, that's a perfect example of observing your reactions and learning to look deeper into it rather than just saying, I hate groupthink. How does that hurt your ego? That's the real question.
Such moments with maximum skepticism. Be aware of demagogues who exploit the group effect and stimulate outbreaks of irrationality.
Those are politicians, like I say again, race hustlers, people who use the traumatic background of a group of people as a way to gain power. Like that's why I am so skeptical of political activists. Not all of them, but a lot of them require to like instilling fear in you in order for you to.
They inevitably resort to certain devices. In a group setting, they begin by warming up the crowd, talking about ideas and values that everyone shares, creating a pleasant feeling of agreement.
Political activist. Like, I'm sorry, man. I'm suspicious of political activists. I really am. If you are, I will support you. But I'm just saying that with being a political act, it's very hard to be a political activist and not be extremely biased. It's okay to be biased, but fuck me. The level of bias that some political activists have is on another proportion. It's insane. I hate see right there.
They talk of
Because what
abstract.
I'm saying is I'm actually thinking of certain politics. That's why. And that is my bias. And that's why I have to observe and catch myself and say, okay, where does this come from? Where does this come from? Where does this come from? And over time, you just end up breaking down that whole edifice. You break it down by observing it piece by piece and by questioning the source of it. And how does it hurt your ego? Let's go back 30 seconds.
Who exploit the group effect and stimulate outbreaks of irrationality. They inevitably resort to certain devices. In a group setting, they begin by warming up the crowd, talking about ideas and values that everyone shares, creating a pleasant feeling of agreement.
In psychology, that's called a yes ladder, where you get people to agree with you by saying things that most people agree with. And as you get people to agree with you, the more they agree on previous things, the more likelihood they're going to agree on the next thing, even if it sounds outrageous. That's why some people will even preach and say that it's okay for a 6-year-old boy to be on hormone to become a little girl, or because a little boy feels like a girl, and that boy has the right to express himself. And the reason why they've gone to that place is because they're married to a party. And I don't call them stupid. I just say that that's just human nature. That's the power of the yes ladder, you know?
They rely on vague but loaded words full of emotive qualities such as justice or truth or patriotism. They talk of abstract, noble goals, rather than the solving of specific problems with concrete action.
Because to these people, solving the problems means they're losing their job. They don't want the problem solved. They want more problems so that they can keep working. You know, so it's like if you're a doctor, if you want more clients, you better pray for for a catastrophe. It's the same thing with these politicians.
Demagogues in politics or the media try to stir a continual sense of panic,
News anchors.
urgency, and outrage. They must keep the emotional levels high.
You listen to this, and this just sounds like the U.S. politics. It sounds like U.S. politics, where you have certain politicians who try to tell me that the reason why I don't succeed is because of some dude outside. That the reason why I don't focus and why I don't take the initiative to find myself a job and get a career is because of some nefarious man on top. They say it's not your fault that you don't succeed. It's because he is the one that's stopping you. And so what happens? Rather than me take control over my life, I tell him, hey, okay, since I'm not the one who's causing my failure, then you attack that person who's stopping me. So now I stop taking responsibility, and now I give him the power. And now when I don't succeed, I don't look at my mistakes. I ask him, hey, can you take that person down? It's so insidious for people to use the trauma of the past of certain groups of people as a way to manipulate them in the current.
Your defense is simple. Consider your reasoning powers, your ability to think for yourself, your most precious possession. Resent any kind of intrusion upon your independent mind by others. When you feel you are in the presence of a demagogue, become doubly wary and analytical.
And unfortunately, the reason why most people don't do that is because, like he said, people have a strong need to believe.
A final word on the irrational in human nature. Do not imagine that the more extreme types of irrationality have somehow been overcome through progress and enlightenment.
It's just been hidden.
Throughout history, we witness continual cycles of rising and falling levels of the irrational.
Honestly, I think this is one of the periods in time when people are most irrational, even though it seems like we're more rational than before, simply because of social media. It's inflaming people. It's reverting people back to our primal states of mind. And I think people are just more animalistic now than before. But the reason why they're so animalistic is because they don't recognize it. They see their bias as rationality.
The great golden age of Pericles, with its philosophers and its first stirrings of the scientific spirit, was followed by an age of superstition, cults, and intolerance. This same phenomenon happened after the Italian Renaissance. That this cycle is bound to recur again and again is part of human nature.
That's the thing.
The irrational...
I can't get mad at that. Like, what I got to work on is not get mad at that part of human nature. Because I'm like that too. You know? Like, there has to be an element of accepting humans as they are. It's not that you like accept their beliefs or condone what they do, but that you want to get to the point where you understand that's part of human nature and there's no anger behind it. There's just an understanding, like understanding that a rock is or even understanding how a flower is made. You don't get mad at the flower, you just understand it. You know, because why are you angry at human nature? How has it hurt you? See what I'm saying? The reason why I'm mad at human nature, of how stupid irrational we are, because it has something to do with my ego. It has nothing to do with understanding the human nature. It has more to do that this type of dumbass thinking causes me to fucking have arguments with people. I'm thinking of my friend. And just say, well, are you fucking out of your mind? Oh, God. You know, so what that means is that this is my bias that I'm getting every day. I become more aware of it. And there is a power in just having awareness of it, because it's not working underneath the surface. Like, now I know why. It's like a malfunctioning computer. If you don't know everything why it's malfunctioning, you can't fix it. You know, you got to know why you think the way you do in order to fix it, in order to improve. If your goal is to really be rational, you got to know all of these little things.
Simply changes its look and its fashions. We may no longer have literal witch hunts, but in the 20th century, not so very long ago, we witnessed the show trials of Stalin, the McCarthy hearings in the U.S. Senate.
Well, that's very similar to cancel culture today, where humans will always have witch hunts. That's just a byproduct of tribalism. You can never stop that. The point is that for you to observe the witch hunt and not let yourself be dragged by groupthink.
And the mass persecutions during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Various cults are continually being generated, including cults of personality and the fetishizing of celebrities. Technology now inspires religious fervor. People have a desperate need to believe in something, and they will find it anywhere.
And now, most cults are not in person. Most cults are online, and usually political groups. Political groups are legit cults, people. That's why you gotta be careful with political groups that you follow, and where you only vote for one political group. You gotta be careful, because that's cult-like, and that erodes your ability to think critically.
Polls have revealed that increasing numbers of people believe in ghosts.
Well, now it's not just ghosts. Now the opposite of religion is liberalism. And now the God of today and the spirits of today are, I could be a woman. A man could get pregnant. All of that shit. Do you think that's really science? No, it's not. That's an ideology. Just like people believing that angels exist. I'm not shitting on your religion, by the way. I'm just saying, I'm just showing you how you see that people might not be religious now, but they're still doing the same mental gymnastics, but in a different way. Why? Because humans, there's a pleasure in irrationality. There is a pleasure in believing in things that you don't see. I don't know why, but there is a pleasure behind it. Hey, look, man, I'll be honest with you, I don't give a fuck about that. You know, but it is ridiculous, that I could get pregnant. Are you fucking serious? Anyways.
Spirits and angels in the 21st century. As long as there are humans, the irrational will find its voices and means of spreading.
And what makes it so difficult is that the irrational is always dressed and masquerading as rationality. And that's why it's so insidious.
Rationality is something to be acquired by individuals, not by mass movements or technological progress.
Yep.
Feeling superior and beyond it is a sure sign that the irrational is at work. Step 3.
All right, people, we're going to leave it there. Hopefully, in the next one, we can finish it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. By the way, let me know, how do you guys like this? Do you guys want me to keep, do I pause too much? What should I do? What is it that you guys watch? If you guys watch this, what do you guys like and you don't like? Let me know in the comments down below.